Who I know we love to love Storm and T'Challa together. And who doesn't love the idea of two powerful, beautiful black characters being married and staying married? I know I love the idea of Storm and T'Challa, but I do not love Storm and T'Challa. Storm and T'Challa's history goes back decades, canonically. But even from their first hearing about their meetup, something about it never sat right with me. So we're going to start with how they met. While there are technically two separate stories, with one being a retcon, the overall, the overarching basis of how they met and the initial aftermath are pretty much the same. So let's start with the original version of how they met in Marvel Team Up 100. And so, in Marvel Team Up 100, we get Storm with a brief kind of flashback telling of how her and T'Challa first met. And essentially, Storm saves T'Challa, and then she tells about how after that he just left because he had a mission to fulfill as future king of Wakanda. So then in the Storm miniseries in 2006, we get a retcon where T'Challa saves Storm instead of Storm saving T'Challa. And then we get a little bit deeper into the story of what happened. And essentially what happens is T'Challa saves Storm. They have this whole romantic storyline where they realize that they're in love, and then they end up both getting kidnapped by the poachers, and they fight and they escape. And then they have this glorious kind of adventure together where they're kind of traveling around, and then something happens, and T'Challa essentially runs off, and then he tells Storm essentially that he can't stay, he needs to go, she's a distraction from his duties as king, da da da. What? There's no reason why. There's first off no reason why T'Challa would have had to abandon his future and his mission. What he could have done was tell Aurora what it was he needed to do, and she could have gone with him to Wakanda then. But instead, he just leaves her. It's not a good look to talk about how much you're in love with this person, this whole romantic thing, and then just abandon them and blame them for you being distracted from what it is you're supposed to do, leading to more trauma for Aurora, who had already been traumatized enough in her life up to this point. Because let's remember, both of them were preteen to teenagers in this time. When they met, they were 12. So we're talking two 12-year-olds going around exploring different parts of Africa, and then one's just abandoned. One who already has had a lot of trauma in her life. So now we fast forward because the Storm miniseries is actually a lead up to the Black Panther issue 14 that came out the same year. So in issue 14 of Black Panther back in 05 or 06, T'Challa re-finds Storm. And what does he do? He talks about how much he loves her, and he just proposes to her. I haven't seen you in years, but now I'm proposing to you. Gotta will you marry me? But what is that? That's not a healthy dynamic at all. And Aurora initially says no to his proposal. And because Aurora says no, and T'Challa's just thinking, okay, well, she's just hard headed. She's a hard headed, stubborn, strong woman. His thought is coercion. He's going to take her home with him to Wakanda, and he's going to show her the beauty of Wakanda, introduce him to his mother, tell her how much he loves her and always loved her, excuse his own behavior, and just expect her to come around. Now, was he wrong? No, he wasn't. But it doesn't make it okay. Interclaim remark. So, I talked about this in my Storm trope video about how part of a trope that Storm has fallen into is being the good, submissive woman who was expected to put her emotions aside and be forgiving and care. Of course, herein lies my problem that T'Challa, again, is part of Storm's trauma. He abandoned her a long time ago, calling her a distraction, even though he already said he loved her. He didn't invite her to come with him. He didn't explain it kindly and give the option or anything. He just called her a distraction of the left. He appears all these years later. Then he proposes to her all of a sudden after all these years. When she says no, he brings her home. He introduces her to his mother. Aurora is all kinds of nervous to meet Queen Ramonda, who she looks up to and essentially kind of, it seems like she idolizes her if you've read the Black Panther series. And so because of that, when Storm speaks to Ramunda, is just like, yes, I see that you would be perfect for my son. You would be the perfect bride. He is a strong king. He is a proud man. He is a great leader. And you too would be a great leader. You are a strong, powerful woman. And you should be by his side. It wasn't about whether or not they were actually a true fit for each other. It was about the fact that they were both strong and powerful and would make good leaders. But it was never about allowing Storm to heal for what had happened to her or for T'Challa to face actual consequence for his part in it. So now, thanks to Aurora's deep respect for Queen Ramonda, she decides that she will in fact marry T'Challa. And of course we saw that for the most part their marriage, from how it was written, looked amazing. They had beautiful moments, times they took up for each other, times T'Challa really stood up for her and showed that that was her wife, and no matter what, you're not going to disrespect her, and all these things. And then everything comes to a head in Avengers versus X-Men. I remember when Avengers vs. X-Men came out, and I started reading it, and I'm a huge X-Men fan, so I picked up Avengers vs. X-Men when it started. And I was not a huge Avengers vs. X-Men fan. I wasn't really feeling the whole thing. However, that has nothing to do with this video. I'm just saying my thoughts and my gripes. People, unsurprisingly so, blame Storm. Or at least I've seen people in forums blame Storm for the Storm and T'Challa divorce because of her siding with the X-Men. So here is my counter argument to that. First off, everything I've already stated. Storm and T'Challa's relationship, technically, because of what it was built upon, was in all reality would be a ticking time bomb. Again, she saves him, he saves her, he leaves her, he abandons her. They get married on a whim, they have some good times, and then Avengers versus X-Men happens. Storm sides with the X-Men, the only family, the only true family she's ever known. And T'Challa, who is an Avenger, sides with the Avengers. So because of this, their marriage is very strained throughout this entire storyline. Then Namor, who is part of the X-Men team, floods Wakanda. Now, Namor was acting irrationally and decided to take things into his own hands. He did this by himself, in part thanks to Emma Frost. This was not what the X-Men wanted. Scott's the leader at the time, and he told Namor, no, leave it alone. Namor, being Namor, did not listen. So after that happens, T'Challa puts out a ban on all mutants in Wakanda. Now here's a question. If Storm had sided with the Avengers, and she was still living, would she still be counted in that? Now, one could argue, of course, he would make an exception for her, but would he? Because he knows Namor acted on his own. And when Storm comes to help, he says, nah, get out. The High Priest of Wakanda has annulled our marriage. And she says, you're the High Priest. And that's the end of them. Now they stay friends after this, but so many people want them to get back together. And I say if Storm and T'Challa were to get back together, many things would need to happen first. Now they have built more of a bond and a friendship at this point, so them kind of slowly going into romance wouldn't be as strange now. But they would definitely need to fix the foundation of their relationship, and that is my biggest issue. The foundation of their relationship was built on fleeting love, young love, a fleeting romance of youth, and then coming back together because he never forgot about her. Despite the fact that she did ask, were you still thinking of me when you slept with all the women you slept with over these years? At the end of the day, their relationship was not built on anything foundational. It was all built on fleeting emotions. It was built on toxicity. It was built on trauma. No one healed. No one fixed themselves. No one worked on themselves before they jumped in headfirst. And as soon as things were bad, it all crumbled down. So no, I am not a Storm and T'Challa need to be back together. However, I would accept it if they worked on the foundations of their relationship and allowed Storm to have a stronger role in said relationship instead of just being pulled along because she's a woman and she has to. So, that's those are my thoughts on Storm and T'Challa and their relationship, and I am not really a fan. Put it back with Forge, I guess. Anyway, if you have anything to say, I'm sure someone does, go ahead and drop a comment below, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, because that's how the channels grow. Subscribe. I interview Black women who work in the comic and manga space, and those interviews go live on Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the next season is coming soon. So, remember, as I always say, the smallest spark can become a huge blaze. And I'll see you guys in the next video.